to show you guys how to do a simple hexagon quilt. These hexagons are pieced together for the tumble quilt in my book Modern Day Quilter, but this works just as well with any size or shape of hexagon. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you cut out your hexagon, usually using a template or a hexagon ruler, you're going to need to mark a 1/4 inch from every corner. So using this ruler, I'm just going to place it a 1/4 inch from each edge, and I'm going to mark my edges. So I'm going to do that around each edge. And as I do that, I'm creating these X's in each corner. Like this. And this is going to be really important for when you start sewing your hexagons together. Okay, I have gone all the way around, and you'll see there are some little X's on every corner, a 1/4 inch from the edge. So now when you are lining up your hexagon pieces next to each other, and then you're going to sew them into rows first. And so if this was the next piece on my row, I would put it right sides together, and I'm going to sew in between those two X's. And what I'm going to do to make sure to stabilize it is I'm going to back stitch on the beginning and end of each sewing segment. Okay, now I have 2 rows of hexagons sewn together, and if you look on the back, you can see where I stopped or started and stopped right at those X's, and did a little back stitch on both sides. So I have done that on all of the seams to create 2 rows of hexagons. So now we're going to start sewing the 2 rows together. The first thing you're going to do is identify which 2 edges need to be sewn together first. So that's going to be these 2 edges. We're going to be sewing together this zigzag gap here. That's what we're sewing together. So the first thing that needs to be sewn together is this side to this side. So I'm going to match those up like that. And it's going to look a little funky, but now I'm going to sew right along this edge, again starting and stopping in between those 2 X's. Now that we've got that edge sewn together, and you can see where they come together, those 2 seams come together right at that corner. And now we've got something that looks a little bit like this. So we've got our first edge sewn together, and now we need to sew this edge. So now I'm going to flip this piece this way. And I like to kind of fold this in half so that it's out of the way and everything lays nice and flat. So again, I am just kind of folding this one in and laying this one down on top. And everything should be pretty well lined up. And now I'm going to sew from this point to this point and keeping all seams out of the way. So from here to here. Okay, there is that seam. So now we've sewn this seam and this seam, or rather this seam and this seam, to create those 2 seams. So you can check your Y seam on the front to make sure everything lays nice and flat. If you've gone past your marking point, then you'll end up with a pucker in that seam right here. So just double check as you go. So now we need to sew together this. We need to continue the zigzag. So we're going to go up, down, and up. And we're just going to continue lining up the 2 edges as we go. So we're going to line this up like this. And again, I'm going to fold that last seam, in half so that I can lay it flat. So hopefully that makes sense. Things could kind of fold up like an accordion. So I'll do it again just so I can show you guys. You're matching this edge with this edge. So do that first. Do that first. Line up those edges. And if you need to pin it in place or clip it, whatever you need to do, I just hold it. And then this part is what I want to fold just to get it out of the way. So I'm going to fold those pieces together to keep them out of the way. And then I'm going to sew this edge from here to here on, starting and stopping on those X's. The other thing to keep in mind as you're going is to make sure that your hexagon corners also match up, like the actual edges. So this one you can see is a little bit overlapping, or a little edge hang off. So I'm going to make sure that those are really pretty accurate so that the X on this side matches the X on the other side. And I'm going to sew that. I'm going to sew that edge. Okay, so I just want to point out here, you'll be able to see there's a little bit of a gap where I didn't quite make it to the X. And I just want to mention real quick, that's only about a stitch away. It would be better to have a gap than to cross over the line, because then you'll end up having to unpick that. So right now we're almost done sewing these 2 rows together. I'm going to go ahead and sew this one and this one off camera, but just to remind you, I now need to match up these 2 edges. So I'm going to go ahead and match them like this and go sew them, making sure that I'm keeping the edges together as I go. Okay, now that I have finished sewing these 2 rows of hexagons together, now we can flip to the back and press our seams. This is one of the reasons why I love sewing Y seams, is because you don't need to press anything until you're all done. Now, what you're basically going to do is you're going to be pressing all of your seams in the same direction. And what I mean by that is that, let me move this out of the way. What I mean by that is that this whole row is going to be facing this way, and this whole row is going to be facing this way. And you're basically going to be continuing the direction of your seams everywhere you go on the quilt. So these will be this way, these will be that way, this will be up. And what you're going to create here in the center are these cute little pinwheels. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. Okay, so what we're doing is creating this little pinwheel. And I'm going to just finger press it for a minute. But you get this cute little swirl of a seam. And we're going to do that to every seam on this little mini quilt example. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and probably speed up the video as I go. Okay, so I just want to point out real quick, I did say wrong that these seams would be facing this way. All of the rows will be facing the same direction, and then these are the ones that kind of, or wrong direction, these are the ones that kind of change. So I hope that makes sense. And now we've got, you can see, I'll zoom in, you can see these cute little pinwheels in the center. And now my quilt is nice and flat and ready for quilting. So I hope this helps, and hope that you can go forward comfortable making a hexagon quilt.